So then we see this. I pulled up a website called Rate City, and I don't know if this is the most legitimate source. It doesn't matter. For the principles, I will tell you right here. So what we are looking at is just a few examples of the current advertised mortgage rates. What I'm seeing here, 3.69% on a variable mortgage. You have to scroll for a while to actually get to fixed mortgages. But let's just say, 3.5% to 4% is our range. 3.5% to 4% is extremely low when you look at it on a historical sense. There's no way that this can be sustained for a long period of time. This right here is the actual Reserve Bank of Australia's own statements. Just recently, July 3rd, the board decided to leave the cash rate, you could think of this like the federal funds rate in the US, unchanged at 1.5%. So here they are having rates extremely low. Now, why is it 1.5%, which by the way is the same as other places like Canada, for instance? Well, unlike what we saw with the Federal Reserve, for example, who brought interest rates down to the bottom and carried them there for the longest period of time and then slowly but surely have been increasing their rates, in Australia, things worked a little differently. They reacted by bringing the rates down, tried to bring them back up, realized that was a terrible mistake, and have ever since been reducing their rates. They are now at 1.5%. This means that mortgage rates are very low, and throughout this period of time, you need to keep the bubble going. How do you keep the real estate bubble going? By keeping interest rates down. You don't bring the mortgage rates, that's the banks who do the mortgages. You have to bring down the central bank's rate. So the central bank brings them down, and then the commercial banks follow suit. That's what I see here. It's very different, in fact, what some other central banks had done. It was more immediate, bring them down right to the floor, and then carry it there for as long as possible. Things have really been different in Australia. This right here, I just went to a search engine. I typed in no money down loan Australia, something like this, and I pulled up this website. The days of borrowing 100% of the purchase price without any proof of savings are gone. Unfortunately, due to the global financial crisis, lenders are no longer offer the no deposit home loans. Oh, that's unfortunate, they say. However, you can still get approved for a 100% loan, subject to suitability and if you get creative and so on. So right here, 5 ways to do it. Option 1, 105% guarantor loan. You can borrow 105% of the purchase price. You don't need any savings, but your parents must provide a guarantee secured on their property. How does that sound? I'm sure a lot of people do that. It goes on to different details. You can get a gift, a loan essentially, and then some lenders can consider the loan even if you didn't save the deposit yourself. So as long as somebody's willing to bail you out, no worries there. There's different options here. I don't want to bore you with all of these, but essentially there are ways to get around this. One of them I found was interesting, using your superannuation. Do you have over $150,000 in superannuation? You can set up a self-managed superannuation fund to buy a property. This can only be used as an investment property. But I think it is very interesting to think about this. The supers, my opinion here, I know a lot of people will not like this comment. However, this is just like the 401k in the US, the RRSPs in Canada. What we are talking about is retirement savings, and in my personal opinion, will eventually be worth nothing. So if you could use that to buy a home as an investment property, I would take that. You do whatever you feel like, but I would take that. So it's pretty interesting to see what's available here. This is a way to get the money out of there, I think. Now, there's a lot of fine print and I'm not aware of it all, so you should definitely check into that yourself. By the way, all the sources will be in the description at the very bottom. I wanted to touch on this and probably will touch on this world's top importers of 2017 in another video, but I wanted to mention it specifically for Australia right here. Their imports, 229 billion. Now that is, I would say quite significantly less than many other countries. I mean, in fact, Canada, $442 billion. So they are less reliant, I believe, on many other countries. Perhaps it's the location where they are. Maybe they can be more self-sufficient. I'm not 100% sure of all the details of which, but this is a good thing, I think. If you don't need to import too much, then it's good. But I want to know how it is during bad times, during good times. I like to see some more numbers on that and see the growth of that occurring. I want to know why that's the case, because it's not just based on population, but it could be a factor with simply where its location is. Geographically, it can be difficult because of transportation costs, especially as oil rises and so on. Okay? Understand what your country, wherever that is, what they're importing, what they're exporting. It is really, really essential. Not just your country, but the country that you're focusing on. This is a website I've talked about before. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it, Numbeo or Numbeo, Numbeo. Check it out. One of the most informative websites out there for looking at statistics like real estate specifically. So when you go to this, you can type in a city, whatever you choose. And this, I typed in Sydney, and it will tell you the details of that particular city. So you can get lots of details about this particular city. I don't know if it's all completely accurate. It's based on users actually inputting the data, which is great. I don't know if it's completely based on just the users. However, as soon as you go to the site, they start asking you, will you help us out? So it does seem to me that it is sort of based on a bunch of different users, and there is a range. So it gives you an idea of how accurate the statistic really is. Looking at this, I can get some details. I can find out about the city. I can find out about the food, the drinks, the produce items, different transportation costs, and so on. Definitely 100% check this out if you're in Australia or not. It doesn't matter. You can just type in your city, and the more populous that city is, you would probably be able to find more details, and the range would probably be really a lot smaller. So it's probably beneficial for you to do that. And then I'm going to end it there. So what I would say is that as interest rates rise, it's going to put a further burden on the real estate prices in Australia. There's no way to deny it. A lot of people will argue with me and believe that the central bank will be there to boost this. I don't think that works like that. It never really has in history. The central banks are out there for their own good, and they want people to be in poverty, to be subservient. Look, if you have a crash of the financial system, what happens? The central bank steps in and buys it up. Now the central banks printed fiat money in order to buy assets. We have basically given permission, whether we like it or not, we've given permission for central banks to start owning assets. Where did they get the money from? Nowhere. They printed it up. Can you do that? Absolutely not. That's considered to be counterfeit. You can't just print up money. How does that sound for an idea for global domination? Whoa, that's too deep. Can't talk about that. So I'll end it there. If you found the video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you want the financial education that was not taught to you in schools intentionally to keep you from the truth, then these two books have it all. I talk about real estate in both of these books. I get into the 4 asset classes on the Money GPS, which is the one on the right here. I talk about how to reduce your expenses, becoming self-sufficient. I talk about lots of details in the book on the left. It's a much shorter book, Global Economic Collapse. You can check them out in the link in the description. If you're more interested in the audiobook version, you can get that at themoneygps.com.